More and more great products from the days of yore are being converted into DCC. That's Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game, in case you've just arrived. We're only hours from the newest backerkit project, Caverns of Thracia, which is going live, tomorrow, I believe. A classic mega dungeon adventure from Jennell Jaquays. And we're going to talk about Caverns of Thracia, as well as some other recent projects like Crypt of the Devil Lich, Dark Tower, and much, much more. And our guest is the conversion king himself, Judge Bob Brinkman. Also with me today. Oh, hello. Say hello, Bob. Thank
you. Hey, everybody.
Yes, thank you. And also with us is Judge Jen.
Good evening.
And Mr. Judge James.
Who is muted?
I gave him 2 honorifics. Well, let's call him the Reverend President, Mr. Judge James. But only if he gets off mute.
I have to go off mute? Oh. Dominus Ominous. Yeah. Benedictions to all.
Oh, very nice. All right. That was smooth sailing, of course. So let's head on. I'm ready for a beer. I think it's only been about 30 seconds, but I'm ready for a cold one. Let's head to the tavern. All right. What the heck is going on is the question, and I'm just waiting to get it all out. We had a great time at North Texas RPG Con. I played a lot of games for the first time. I played Flashing Swords or Flashing Blades. The old, I think it's like an old TSR Musketeers fencing style type game, which was quite a bit of fun. Played Star Wars D6 for the first time, I'm ashamed to say, but that was a blast. Old school traveler. We just had a great time. And even got to play a new adventure, like a couple hours of a new adventure for Neon Lords of the Toxic Wasteland that's going to be coming out. It's on Kickstarter. Ian McGarty is the writer, and it was super fun. So I'll put the Kickstarter in our show notes. I got to sit next to Stefan Surratt, which was also good because I'd never met him in person before. So that was really fun. But maybe the highlight of the adventure, besides playing a Cyber Reagan, was that at the very end of the adventure, his character turns around and says, "Oh, and I killed the Cyber Reagan." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm just opening fire on you." And I said, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, remember how you were texting Grape Ape and telling him that we were having such a great con and where was he and all that stuff? Well, he just paid me $20 to kill your character."
Wow.
Meanwhile, Grape Ape was at like Robert E. Howard days. So
yes, he was. He was sweating his butt
but he was
off.
at Robert E. Howard days. He could suck it up, man. I want to be at Robert E. Howard days. Hot or not.
So Stefan said, "This is the most money I've ever made in a con game," and he loved it. And anyway, so we had a blast. Okay, enough said. I think that's the main stuff. How about you, Judge Jen?
Well, it's wait, are we talking like just the past month or since the last show? Since the last time I was with you on a show? It's all blurring together, right?
Since well, we were taunting you about going to England last time, I believe, something like that.
Oh, then I was here for the last show. Oh, I rest my case. It's been a long, long year so far.
A lot has happened.
Yeah.
Not that I would change any of it, except for maybe breaking my foot. But
right.
You know, who needs ligaments to walk? I did manage to attend and vend at and be social at the UK Games Expo in Birmingham, and didn't die, so bonus. I would love to give a shout out, if I may, to both Julian and Sue Haley, as they were once again the angels who rescued me at my booth. And as was fan Michael Delicate. Oh my goodness. Julian, remember like our enthusiasm levels when we first started playing this game? It was like that. It was like that. I just wanted to bottle it and take it to like every single con with me. Fingers crossed he can actually make it to Gen Con next year. And of course, Bruce Cunnington, God knows what we would do without that man. Just absolutely the best liaison. Is that the best appropriate word? All right, he's absolutely the best support in the UK, and I challenge anyone else to try to step up to that level.
He's an eternal champion of DCC. Can we say that?
I like it. I like it a lot. But let's make him like Quorum or something. Not an asshole like Elric.
Okay.
Oh wait, sorry, Kugel.
Whoa.
Thinking Kugel. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, there's been a lot of like convention support. I've been on the sidelines for things like Origins and rooting them on from afar because I kind of need to limit how much I'm out there and about, as it turns out. But actually, beginning tomorrow, our Gen Con prep begins in earnest over at the warehouse. So we're already starting to get things ready for the pair of trucks we'll have going out.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Yeah, well, y'all have seen the ziggurat, right?
Yeah.
And since you're giving Kickstarters a shout out, we've got one here from Michael Davis. I mean, artwork by Jeff D. Come on.
Yeah.
But Return of the Ripper is a DCC investigative adventure. We're in the last 57 hours of it. Very nice bloke from Ireland, and we really hit it off when I was in the UK. So I would love to throw him all the accolades. And some of you might be familiar with his work if you've downloaded the Pelagia, shoot. I'm gonna say Pillars of Pelagia, but that's not correct. There's a DCC product for Clerics of Pelagia.
Yeah.
PDF right now. I'm trying to convince him to put it out in print.
I'll hunt down. Well, of course, we'll put both these Kickstarters we've mentioned in the show notes, and I'll hunt that down as well.
Priesthood of Pelagia. There we go.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got to say, Julian Haley combines in one person the names of the two greatest DCC judges of all time. I mean, it's just, what else could you ask for? You know,
last name spelled differently though.
Oh,
I had to give Brendan crap about that, so I got to give you crap too.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
All right, I'll pass the baton to Judge James.
There we go.
All right. Let's see. Origins was this weekend, and I was there. So I'm just getting out of con. I'm barely recovered, to be honest. I took a nap today after work. But that was a lot of fun to go there. It's my second time there, and I had taken off the year last year, so it was good to go back to Columbus and see some more of the city and play in DCC organized play. So ran a session of the Race Against Slime, which is the second entry into the Adventure Path organized play thing. So it was pretty cool. We had a lot of people at the tables for that stuff, so I think it went off smashingly. Good job, Judge Brendan, bringing the road crew.
So James, did people bring their characters from GaryCon? Did anybody
No, almost everybody picked up like the pre-gens off the table. I don't think I saw anybody who had something that they had played with before. Give us time as it gets more and more prevalent. I guess if by the looks of things, that they'll probably do it again, I would imagine. And so you'll get.
Gamehole is the next one it's scheduled for.
Gamehole is the next one, yes. And if Gamehole is anything like this one was, I imagine you'll get to play all three if you wanted to, because they did play some of the first session, Michael Curtis's adventure, which was at Gary Con, and then they played a lot of the Race Against Slime. So maybe they'll play all three at Gamehole. I don't know.
Oh, that would be really
Run
fun.
the full
Then
season.
yeah, you
Yeah.
could play the whole cycle in one con possibly.
Yeah, and same character, right? You could go from
Yeah.
session to session with that same character.
Ooh, I'm digging
And,
it. Yeah.
and your mad loot and your curses and other special effects you've picked up along the way.
Your slime.
And your drained luck and your spell-burned corpse.
Well,
Yeah.
Hey, a little realism, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do? Do you you start fresh though with your abilities and your, well, not your luck rejuvenated unless you're a halfling or a thief, I suppose, but like all your spellburn would be healed for session 2,
Right.
James?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I think this is still like in its proto infancy kind of. I don't think I recall very much around the in the rules or in the adventure around like what to do if you have just played the other adventure. But
I just
sure-
love the yes, I think so. I
Yeah.
don't know.
we'll see. I mean, the sky's the limit. They could take it any way they want to go, right? It's the first time. I
Yeah.
imagine it's going to get into print at some point as well.
Cool.
And then of course, played some sessions of Netcrawl at night, and had a lot of fun with that. So ran in space, no one can hear the Robo Apocalypse, and
Oh yeah.
which I think is that's a fun adventure to run. And they were three. The party was split to three, which is just perfect. All these flunkies running around trying to save the computer and themselves. And then generative surge on Saturday night. So I had a good time. Picked up Origin glasses, and all that kind of good stuff. So fun times. Bob, what's up with you, man?
Everybody gets to go to conventions but me, apparently. I have not left Marion for quite a while. But I still have the ongoing Caverns of Thracia campaign playtest. I've got a great Friday night group for that with folks that I'm sure like Joan Troyer and Chase Reinhardt and a few other folks. And so that's been going really well. It's been a lot of fun watching Chase bang his head on his desk live while trying to figure out the way some of the maps fit together has been an absolute delight. And and for a big adventure like this, campaign playtest is really important. They definitely caught some things going through that needed correction, and still might, right? I mean, yeah, Kickstarter launches tomorrow, but crowdfunding launch tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. So there's that. I have been hard at work translating the Dictionnaire Infernal from French to English and providing DCC content for every entry. So that has been my crazed Patreon, which got me motivated to actually get up and work on a passion project of mine. And we've been having a lot of fun with that. Just did a zine release that goes to all of the members, including the free members, that has 2 patrons, a new character class, a system for magical locks of hair akin to mighty beards.
These people are getting all that for free?
Yes, well, because there's 5 zealot level members, and that's kind of a sponsoring membership, so they each get to pick an item, and I write that up, and that goes out to all of the members. So
that's a cool idea.
Bob, step back though.
Yeah.
And tell us about, because you put the link in the show notes, so I'm looking at the Patreon, which it looks amazing. I mean, tell us about this book and exactly what this project is.
So the Dictionnaire Infernal is a 19th century French book on demonology. And it is probably best known for its last printing in I think the 1860s or 1870s, which added a number of illustrations, which is what it's best known for. But it covers everything from, alchemy to the the demons that lead the legions of hell, how many demons and devils there are in hell. There's an entry on the first alchemist, Adam. I got to do a write-up of Adam, who, according to the book, some folklore says was a giant and the first alchemist. So I've been going through each entry gets playable DCC content, and that goes to the majority of members. If you're in at the $1 level, you get one monster a month, the Fiends of the Dictionary Infernal release. And then there is the Dark Priests, who get an additional piece of content just for them. And then the Zealots, who sponsor additional content for everybody. But it has just been a lot of fun. Today I was working on it, and I was statting up a type of a type of vulture out of Turkish mythology that lives to be 1,000 years old and carries the souls of the dead into the afterlife. But I've done spells, patrons, all sorts of stuff. I'm having a blast.
Wow. I didn't know. Are you fluent in French? Or are you kind of hacking away, or what? How's your French?
I am powering my way through it.
Oh, nice. Nice. So you're like not maybe quite fluent. It's more like a ho ho ho. I just sort of get along. Ha ha. That kind of.
We don't say si.
Okay.
So I've been doing the Patreon. I've also been prepping Ashraf Braden's next release from Sanctum Media, which is Laboa, which is another powerful spirit kind of patron being. Our last release was Masoka, and that's out and available now. But
it's the Warm the Rains, if I recall.
Yes, the Legends of Uganda stuff is great. I'm working with an artist in Uganda right now to prep a cover for the physical release of Legends of Uganda #2 for Gen Con. So, because it just so happens that the artist that I found lives within like 4 or 5 miles of where Ashraf's at. So that's absolutely perfect. And then finally,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I really do picture that Judge's chapter bit about, hey, travel overland, but you only have so many heroes within X number of miles radius. And Uganda, you have found the 2.
Yeah, and Ashraf actually is working to make Legends of Uganda and some of the smaller releases that we've done. He's working to make them available in Uganda. So it'll be the first DCC product for sale in definitely in Uganda and possibly most of Africa. Although I'm sure that you can probably get DCC in South Africa. I think I remember something from Free RPG Day years ago. But so there's that, and finally, I'm working on an adventure called Evil Never Dies for a company called Explore Dungeons. It's their first foray into DCC adventures, and the adventure takes place in multiple parts. You start off, you go up against the big bad, which is a lich, and then you're thrown back in time, and now you're facing off against the man who would be lich. And I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. So I've definitely been keeping busy, and that's just the stuff I can talk about, right? I mean, James, Julian, Jen, I mean, we all have stuff we can't talk about.
Right.
That's the stuff I can.
Right. Very, very true. Well, thanks, Bob. This is amazing. So I'm putting Ashraf stuff. I've got a link for that. We've got the Patreon link for Dictionnaire Infernal. And we'll put that on the show notes, and of course Explore Dungeons, same deal. So it's going to be awesome. Wow, and that Patreon looks excellent. Just looking at the pages, I mean, it's full of goofy stuff and very cool.
Only the free level gets that much stuff. I'm over here seeing how much work he puts into it and going,
It's very
Curse you.
it's very curated and fun to look at just from so
Well,
excellent.
the people that sign up for a free membership get stuff because the zealots are
Right.
literally sponsoring that, right? I mean,
Right.
That's a
And
really
there are members that are passionate enough about it that they want other people to enjoy it too, and I think
it's in the
that's really
spirit of the
important to know.
community. I get it.
I've
Yeah.
got some really cool members.
Yeah.
So
it's
I
not a
will-
few bucks either. It's like, is it $20 to be a
Yeah, and it's sold out because there's only 5
Yeah.
because
Ooh.
I can only do so much extra content a month.
I think it's cool. It's a really great idea, I think, for a Patreon kind of marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, a couple really quick items. And maybe Jen, you could touch the free RPG Day one, but number one of mine, I got a copy of Installation 665 and hardcover, my MCC adventure from Purple Pirate that we talked about a couple months ago, and
Oh yeah.
wow, does it. I mean, not to toot my own horn because I didn't lay it out or do the art or produce this thing or print it or anything, and man, it's a beautiful physical specimen. So I just have to say I've been getting a lot of great feedback on the
As you
Kickstarter
would
site.
expect, though. I mean,
No, he does a terrific job. It's just blows me away how much work he puts into it, and he really lines up these artists and gets them to pound out all this cool art. So that's pretty cool. I also saw just in doing a bit of Googling around on Caverns of Thracia and stuff that Jennell Jaquays won a posthumous Science Fiction Writers of America Solstice Award. I guess there was
watched
an
that
article in
live.
Locus. And so I thought that was awesome. And it's just a little blurb that I found. And so I'll link that in the show notes too. But it's cool to see some crossover where, a game designer like that is recognized in the sort of greater nerdery of the science fiction community. I thought it was kind of cool. And then last, I think we had a question a while back from David Willett about a sheet for Mighty Deeds that they talked about way back in the days of yore in episode number 5 about Mighty Deeds or something. And thanks to the kindness and diligence of Judge Jen, we finally did track down that PDF. And so we're putting it on the Spellburn site, and there'll be a link in the show notes. Right, that'll just take you straight to the PDF and everybody can have it. It's just a blank like record sheet, but it's fillable, and you can put your you can record all the mighty deeds you've done there for your character, and it's kind of fun. It has graphics and stuff, which is a fun little thing to have.
I used it for Bjorn.
Yes, I did dwarven tunnel fighting, which included the move "Yow!" He punched me in the yarbles. Yeah,
exactly. Jen, what about how did Free RPG Day go for us?
I mean, pretty low impact on us overall. We actually didn't have to do a whole lot of distributing for that one because it comes straight from Free RPG Day. But Marzio's release Across the Veil of Time, which has one of the coolest covers I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
No slack to any of our resident artists, but that was a breath of fresh air.
Who's the artist on that?
Aaron Crater, I believe.
It's
If you see the initials ACK, that's him.
Yeah.
So that came out, and coming up, what we're prepping for right now is DCC Day, which will be July 20th. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead in your list. That's something we're actively working on right now. It's amazing to see everything behind the scenes, right? Because even though I was working with Goodman games in previous years, I've not gotten to be hands-on in the production stage like this. So it's been really fun. This year there's a DCC Day kit and a DCC Day critical kit that your stores can get. And that store list the locator isn't on the site just yet. We haven't cut off sales for it, but it will be up imminently. So there's still like a day or two to bug your store to make sure they participate in that.
And they have a free adventure pack that has a first level adventure by Mr. Bruner and a second level X crawl adventure by Mr. DJ LaBoss himself. Right. And then there's also a new DCC adventure that's Gods of the Earth that comes out for DCC Day, which I've talked about in the past, but had a blast doing that. And that's very, I think, kind of Appendix N-y, old school Nordic DCC, straight ahead, little Shakespeare, little Vikings, whatever. So yeah,
You guys are gonna love the relationship of the cover and the frontispiece for the adventure pack. And this year, the DCC Day kit itself also includes some other cool stuff from Smoking Worm and, can we say, hardcover foil copies of Return to the Starless Sea? I thought you could. The critical kit contains even more third-party products, and it's kind of stunning to see how much stuff is rolling in for third-party distribution too. I'm super proud to be a part of that one.
Yeah, it's really cool how they've been able to sort of cross-pollinate and bring that stuff out to the floor. It's very, you just love to see that. That's how people get their start. And I mean, who would have? We wouldn't even have imagined the DCC Day 10 years ago, much less that they'd be taking third-party stuff and bundling it together with Goodman stuff, and the whole thing. It's just like, wow.
You couldn't have imagined it. Jen could have imagined a DCC Day 10 years ago. I think she was pushing for it even then.
She was probably, she had like little, yeah, okay.
I mean, for her, free RPG Day was DCC Day, so.
Yeah. Well, the only complaint I heard was that I had a few friends who went over to the Source in St. Paul, and they couldn't get their hands on Marzio's game and immediately got grabbed everywhere. So, which, as one does. Yeah.
Don't worry, there are some reserves. They'll probably go up around September.
Cool. And I was at Origin, so I was at the booth, and I was able to snag a couple towards the end. I'm already giving them out to people who are like,
but you're just taunting everybody.
Yeah, no. Well, Andy Markham was like, I was doing a thing, and I was like, I got you one, Andy. Don't worry.
You're selling them on eBay for.
Oh yeah, that's
mad money.
That's what I need to do.
Mad money.
No, you give it away.
Oh, yeah, you might be able to get them for like a penny or something through Noble Knight with a larger order.
Yeah, I think $1 or something, or maybe you're right, maybe a penny.
I don't remember.
That I did not know. That's good to know. All right. Other stuff, guys. Wait, let's say, I don't know if we said this. DCC Day is July 20th, right? Let's say the date. July 20th at a FLGS near you. Excellent, guys. I'd
like to point out that Bob is conspiring to get all the DCC patrons to cross post with each other, which sounds like a great idea. So I'm looking forward to your thoughts on all that, Mr. Brinkman, soon.
To be fair, it is Trevor and I are both kind of scheming so that all the various DCC Patreons can be exposed to the wider Patreon audiences.
Yeah. Brian Schroeder was just asking me, like, should I do Patreon? I was like, yes, you should.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we should have some more of the. We talked about Trevor's in I think a couple episodes ago, and had a good quick glimpse into Bob. So we should talk some more about those in upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. But for now, it's time. Too scary to deal with the zombie in this heat. It's flooding here. It's 95 degrees or hotter everywhere else. So
let them lie. Let those the stinking zombies lie.
Let them fester.
But I do have plans to bring the zombie in upcoming episodes. But for now, hey, let's do a quick email wrap up. I'm going to start with Mr. John Williams. who obviously wrote to us about the question of infinity D6 in the highest level of the singularity MCC power. And he responded, I think there's some kind of limit progression or derivative that you can do with calculus to find out which infinity is bigger than the other. But it can be boring for people who don't like to do crunchy math. That would be me. But I'm just going to go with your opinion on it. And enough said. He wrote us immediately after that, and he said, you are a judge for a group of people. One of your players wants to modify the warrior class to be more like a classic fighter offshoot class like paladin or barbarian. What do you do? And oh yeah, shoot, I didn't put the, I said I go find the Crawl magazine that had the one on the classes, and I get that one.
Yeah,
because
paladin,
yeah, it's in there. I think let's see.
You can find a lot of stuff in the Gong Farmer's Almanac over the years. Lots.
Yes.
There's a barbarian in there for sure. Or two, maybe, in Gong Farmers.
Oh, in Gong Farmers, there's all kinds of stuff. I also did an assassin class in there. There's Crawl number 10 had class options for demi-humans, like to make it a little more like a D&D.
Well,
but
I mean, over on Sanctum, we did 3 different barbarian classes. One by David Beatty, one by Giogo, one by Aramati. And you can grab all those for free in the diverse class catalog on DriveThruRPG.
Oh, there you go. And also, it's Crawl number 6 is the one that has the bard, the gnome, the paladin, the ranger, and so forth. So, which I
paladin, just give your cleric a 2-handed sword.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the paladin. We have that whole episode on classes with Mr. Goad way back when, which I think is one of our good episodes. Well, anyway, I think that's a good episode. So, but anyway, Crawl number 6 is where I would go, Mr. John Williams. So thank you very much. And we're going to keep going. John Wilson says, hey, Spellburners, I'm currently listening to the recent episode, and you just mentioned something about holding some kind of Twitch show or seminar or semi-secret cabal along an intro to judging vibe, possibly folding everyone's favorite uncle, DJ LaBoss, into the scheme. I was just on a few days ago talking to Nick Baran about doing something like that on the next Cyclops Con. Judging doesn't have to be scary and is an easier process than most people think, but if you haven't done it, it can seem like juggling chainsaws while eating an apple for a blindfolded audience. I'm not sure about that. I mean, I actually dig that metaphor. I have to think about it. But anyway, John continues. Maybe we should all team up Avengers style and see what we could get done and or how we can all get in each other's way. P.S. Tell the zombie he was never unintelligible to those who understand him. Keep casting crits. John, this is John Wilson, Byringstow, a different John than our prior emailer. And I was trying to think, I mean, we had a few kind of intro to judging seminars and stuff like that, but they weren't on, they didn't become Spellburn specials, I don't think, Jen. Did they?
The DCC colleges, you can check for them on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Well, that is, I'll look around even during this episode and say something more about it later, but
it doesn't preclude anybody else from doing it again.
Right. We should consider,
These change every year. I don't think we did it since the pandemic. And we all know the sphere of gaming has changed since then.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent, if they're on YouTube, that's great. So I'll dig up a link if I can find them, and I'll put them in the show notes here. And then last, but absolutely and certainly not least, DM Kojo has 2 dice rolling questions that have come up at his table, and here they are. When a thief spends luck to roll dice, luck dice that is, Do they have to declare how many dice they're rolling in advance, or can they string it along by rolling one die? And if it doesn't roll as high as they'd like, keep spending luck points to continue rolling until they reach the desired amount of luck. And
There's
then,
an answer for this.
oh yes, and related.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about this before, but it's not bad to rehash it. In a related note, he says, do you tell players the target DC or make them spend luck blindly, which obviously can lead to spending plus failing? So, Jen, do you want to take this one, or Bob? Bob, sounds like you're all primed and ready.
Well, sure. I'll start with the second half. I don't tell people what the DC is. I think it's more exciting if they go into a blind. And it's really funny when the DC is 8, they roll a 10 and they spend up to 20. I think that's hysterical. So I do those blind. But as for luck, since you can't spend luck once the result is known, you need to declare how many points of luck you're burning before you roll your dice. And good luck from there.
I think you have hit the nail on the head. I don't think there's any question about it. I will say that in particular about the second part of that, it was Judge Jeff Goad, because we've had a few Judge Jeffs even, but Judge Jeff Goad told me, or actually showed me during a game at one point, and he would just kind of turn to you and go, are you happy with that roll? You did like, okay, I got a 12 to hit him, and he would just say, are you happy with that? And then you'd certainly not be told what your target was or how many, and you certainly had to declare how many dice you would roll. I mean, so that it's almost a little bit of a bidding thing to try to get that right. And I think it's
I mean, people roll, and whether or not they've hit the target, I'll say, stand on 12, stand on 15.
Yeah. Yep.
You sure? Okay.
Sometimes I give people a little hint, like small, medium, large, or something like that. If I'm feeling generous.
I mean, at your table, if you want to give people the DC, or you want to let people, roll their dice individually, you can. It's just not rules as written. But as long as everyone's having fun, who cares?
Yeah, and there may be a situational thing, like in the last 10 minutes of a con game, you go, okay, you spent 2 luck. Okay, what? But anyway, hey,
burn it to the ground, man.
Yeah, Jen's going rogue. She says, blood, give me blood, throw up the blood on the walls. Okay. Number 2
resource
question
that you have to separate from your players.
True.
I mean, it's like gold, but you don't come across a whole lot of gold in DCC, so
True. All right, DM Kojo, that's number 1. Number 2, when PCs have an extra attack such as a shield bash or bonus attacks at higher levels, do you allow those attacks to immediately follow the first attack, or do you push the second to later in the initiative order after everyone has had a chance to act? Judge James, what do you think?
It depends on the weapon speed and which segment we're in.
No, wrong.
Oh, wait. That's a different game.
Wrong.
wow.
I personally don't. I don't care to kind of divvy it up that way. But I could see, like, that it makes sense to kind of let the first action die happen and then the secondary action dies happen. I think the hardest thing with that is for something like warriors and shield bashes and dwarves with shield bashes is they've got to kind of keep their deed die kind of on the table and known. Right. But if you're going to say, oh, there's going to be, we're going to go all the way around the table, and then you're going to apply the deed die that you rolled on your first action to your second action. So I don't think in practice, I don't think it would work too great.
I mean, it all takes place in 10 seconds. I don't see the point in splitting hairs.
No. Sometimes it's easier to narrate once especially with the shield bash or something like, what the effect is.
Yeah.
I'd say is that I sort of like the idea of having the second attack go last, especially if it's not a shield bash, but it's like a second attack with the same weapon. But honestly, there's no practical way I could ever try to implement that and remember that after the whole initiative. I mean, no way that I could consistently do that. So as a matter of practicality, I highly recommend everybody just have them all roll at the same time and just try to keep it straight that way.
Could you imagine having to come back around the table and remember, okay, and that person
Oh,
doesn't have one, but that one does, and
well, somebody would have a little red bead the whole system and be, tokens and all that jazz, but no, not me.
No.
Okay.
But your game, Kojo.
Yeah,
you
dude, as you
do you.
wish. Yeah, that's true. Some people are very meticulous and love that combat tracking and all that jazz. So that's
And weapon
probably
speeds
all right.
and segments.
And don't forget damage, and the hit bonuses by armor class.
Yeah, you gotta have that for sure.
Right. Okay.
Even Gary didn't use that stuff. He just put it in the book.
Right. Well, he had to kind of,
Epic
pump
war
that out
game
and
trolling.
make it a little bigger. All right. Well, thank you, DM Kojo. Thanks, John. Keep the emails coming. We're at spellburnband@gmail.com. We love and need your emails. And so thank you. And now we're going to move into our main subject. I guess you'd call it Mighty Deeds, where we talk about conversion stuff. So when we talk about conversions, the question is, mostly we're talking about converting old school stuff to DCC, like AD&D to DCC, or basic D&D to DCC, and so forth. Yes, but I think maybe a lot of some of the original ones, because I have some links of Judge Daniel Joseph Bishop that you guys gave, Jen and Bob, and there was an interesting thing about how he'd worked on the conversion of Well of the Worm to DCC RPG, and that was originally 3rd edition, I want to say, of D&D. Is that correct?
So. Oh,
one of the old Goodman D20 type things. So a fair amount, and not a huge amount, I don't know, but a fair amount. Bob, have you worked on any of those?
Well, I didn't work on any of the old skinnies. I mean, I did some old school to 5e conversion for Castle Amber. I worked on Crypt of the Devil Lich, Dark Tower, the Sons of Set expansion for Dark Tower, and of course Caverns of Thracia. But I mean, the first time I've been converting game systems since I was in college. I ran a Gen Con event that merged characters from all of my other events over the convention, over 14 sessions of gameplay. And so I had converted to run together Gangbusters, Toon, Ghostbusters, AD&D, Palladium, Warhammer. Once you kind of get the bug that, I like this concept, and the only thing in my way is math, conversions can be a lot of fun.
So you've done a ton of stuff. So Castle Amber, Dark Tower, Crypt of the Devil Lich, was that D20 when you?
Yeah. So that was Crypt of the Devil Lich. Both Crypt and Dark Tower, I was given the 5e conversion because they were already ahead by the time I was brought in. But for Caverns of Thracia, both Scott Moore, my 5e counterpart, and I started at the same time. So we were both just working from the original adventure, which I find a lot more fun, and it's a bit easier, I think, to convert something old school from old school rather than through the additional step.
Did you do any? I know you've done at least one 5e adventure for Goodman Games too, if I remember correctly.
Yes, so I did Castle in the Sky, and then I did the Forgotten Hive. And for online conventions, I've converted the Forgotten Hive for DCC play as well. But I mean, that's cheating, right? I mean, I wrote the adventure, so
yeah. But have you done conversions of anything to 5e, or is it only 5e?
No, I did some conversions for Dungeon Denizens. I converted some stuff to 5e.
Interesting.
From 3 or from?
No,
from
for Dungeon Denizens from the DCC side.
Okay. So there was an added stuff at the end that had to go back over to 5e.
Well, I mean,
right?
there was writers that there was materials for Dungeon Denizens that were handed in in DCC format that were converted to 5e, and 5e stuff that was converted to DCC. So there was two different teams. And since I write for both, although primarily for DCC, but since I write for both, I converted in both directions.
I was only on the DCC side of that, so I get 5e stuff to convert over.
But that's
I also just did some conversion for Monsters and Magic of Thracia. And that's where I ran into the thing that I hope to never convert again. 5e monster templates. They just, conceptually speaking, they are so alien to DCC mechanics. That took a while to wrap my brain around for DCC. I mean, for D&D, it makes perfect sense. It just goes with the system, but that was a bit tough.
I had one like that in that initial batch for Dungeon Denizens, where they wanted to do the template over. I was like, ugh. And I remember using them in 3.5, and it made me feel icky.
So was it not fun, or is it like weird and hard? What's the tricky part of it?
It's a wholly alien concept, right? I mean, in DCC, it's the monster, not a monster, and a template is just, okay, lay this over anything, and now it is also this thing.
Yeah.
I think they started that with like in second edition. I remember in the Monstrous Compendiums, there was a vampire was kind of a template you could put on anything. So there was vampire halflings and vampire gnomes and all those things, and so there was just a template. You'd just drop it on a halfling, and now it's a halfling vampire. And in some ways, mathematically, that's kind of cool. You've got these set powers, you just drop it on and boom, you're good to go. But that really kind of flies in the face of the things are unique ethos of DCC. So for me, I really wrestled with it. Mike finally said, "You didn't have to do any of this for Dungeon Denizens, did you?" And he sent me a couple of examples so I could look at them and go, "Okay, I see what we have to do now."
Yeah, they weren't terribly hard to do the template idea in DCC. That's for sure. But I mean, I think some of the things that there's a real like mechanical element of it too, where even in the Dungeon Denizens, like we got kind of a style guide, a guide for conversion, and it's like, bump up the AC a little bit, reduce the hit points a little bit, and there's not a lot of, and everything's in D&D is like mathematical, right? Like they have stat blocks, so they have all the character the same stats that the characters have, and those have to be applied correctly, for skills and hit points and initiative and
attribute
everything.
Checks and
all that stuff.
Okay,
and so
for people who aren't used to this sort of thing, what would you recommend, the both of you, for like level to level? What would your comparison be? Like if you're starting at 3rd level in 5e, are you at 6th in DCC?
No. Actually, I would say like 1 level in DCC covers 2 levels.
Oh, backwards.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you make it to 10th level in DCC, first of all, send me an email and let me know, because I really want to hear about it. But I mean, that's level 20 in 5e. I mean, that's a really big deal. I think that when you're doing a conversion, if you're converting something classic, don't worry about trying to game balance it, because it wasn't. If it's a classic adventure, it wasn't game balanced to begin with. Right? When I was talking to Rebecca at GaryCon, she said one of the things that Jennell was so excited about was that we weren't going to muck around and try and game balance, Dark Tower and Caverns of Thracia. We were doing it the way that she wrote it. And in the case of the DCC conversion, Mike was really big on, okay, well, also don't reinvent the wheel. So if there's a room with 20 skeletons, we have skeletons in DCC, drop in 20 skeletons. Well, okay, there's a power difference between AD&D skeletons and DCC skeletons, but that's part of the fun of not having to balance things. And Dark Tower players fear giant rats now. I nearly wiped 4 parties with them.
So did you keep those 20 skeletons?
Yes. Yeah, if a monster existed as a rules as written creature, we just put it in. Which is essentially what
Okay.
on the 5e side, it's funny because the DCC books tend to be a little bit bigger than the 5e books, but the 5e books are like, okay, refer to, if the monster is in bold, you can look up the stats in the monster manual, and if it's italicized, the stats are in the back. And we have, of course, we put the stat blocks in each encounter because our stat blocks aren't a page long, so we end up a little bit bigger. But when you look at some of the stuff that Jennell would do, you're like, oh, well, this is a lizard man, but this lizard man hits harder and does other things. And so then we start creating variant monsters. So you're never really certain. And that fits the whole DCC thing again, right? Oh, it's a lizard man. Is it, though? Is it just a lizard man? Or is it a religious zealot that is going to just summon more of them, go berserk, and beat on you until you're a fine red mist?
I think that's one of the main things I was actually that I kind of called out to sort of ask you about, Bob, was like, it would be easy to fall into the orc goblin gnoll hole, right? And just be like, oh, hey, it's a we all have the AD&D monster manual memorized type thing. But it sounds like even when you're using those kind of standard monsters, you're DCCifying, and you can still make them the monster, right? Instead of just a cookie cutter type thing.
The other thing that I really enjoyed about Caverns of Thracia, which as a DCC fan struck me as very prescient, is Jennell refers to them as beastmen. The beastmen, which are the lizard men, the gnolls, the minotaur. They're beastmen. And so, yes, I mean, even in DCC, right? We have goblins, we have orcs, we have trolls. There are monsters in the book that are more of a than the. But if you've never encountered them before, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if this is the first time you're encountering gnolls, then it is the tribe of gnolls. It is the Minotaur Kingdom. And so it still works. And any judge can always just shift things just a little bit more, tweak things a little bit more, or like I said, I mean, amongst the lizard men, I think there's 4 different types of lizard men. There's 3 different types of gnolls. So there's still surprises in there. And then there's the really weird stuff.
So I have to mention, as we're live on Twitch tonight, Jim Cox, one of your previous playtesters, is in here and attesting that yes, you did keep those 20 skeletons in there. My question for you is, if you're keeping the number of critters in there, scale for scale there, what does the playtesting tell you that you need to change?
Well, the playtesting isn't about balance, right? It's more about playability as well as finding errors and things of that nature. Because Caverns of Thracia, just like Dark Tower, is more of a campaign than an adventure, right? So it reminds players they just sometimes need to run away. Those 20 skeletons, you might just need to run away or you're going to TPK. But when you come to creatures that are unique to Thracia, that aren't just a substitution, that's when you need to start to look at things. A perfect example would actually be from Crypt of the Devil Lich. DCC dragons are pretty terrifying. Other than the horrendously low melee damage they do, they're really, really terrifying. And that adventure has an undead dragon in it. And I had to, I did the conversion, I did it up full DCC style, and then I had to break the rules and scale it back because there's no way the second to the last encounter should be that much tougher than the final encounter. Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because, oh my God. So that the playtesting the new stuff that has been created, the new creatures that are being statted for DCC for the first time, that's really important. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, this is a really good idea. They have a lot, they've got a lot of arms. They'll give them extra attacks, and you're like, oh well, I forgot this on the first level of the dungeon, and something with 6 attacks can wipe a party. All right, we need to maybe scale this back. Playtest, right? That's what it's for.
So yeah, so playtesting is pretty important, even though, I mean, that's DCC is not like, I mean, it is like old school games, but it's really pretty different than old school games at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I was just on another podcast last week that dropped today, and he was talking about, well, I'm sure, for DCC, DCC is already really deadly, and you don't have a problem. I'm like, well, DCC has a reputation for being really deadly because of the funnel. Once you get to second level, third level, fourth level, that curve starts dropping off really quickly. It's players that run in without thinking about things that tend to lose their characters quickly. But I mean, if you're a judge who wants to convert something and you've never converted anything before, and you're looking at that first monster, my recommendation is start by just looking through the DCC book and seeing something. Find like 3 or 4 monsters that are about the power scale you're looking for. Not challenge ratings or how many hit dice, but just, I remember this creature, and this creature's kind of tough, and that's what I'm going for. And start looking at the way those stat blocks are put together, and they'll be very different, but it gives you that base idea to build from. Because how many hit dice is how tough its crits are. Well, do you want to give it? Should it be able to crit really easy? Does it have multiple attacks? Look at some of the existing stuff and build from there.
Did you I don't know if my approach, yeah, I did a OSE conversion. I'm sure I talked about it at the time. It's about 3 years ago or something, for Vasily Kalaman's Xanadu adventure that he did for Old School Essentials. And so we had worked on a DCC conversion together, which was terrific fun. And it's a wonderful adventure, super weird, super deadly, kind of has this fairy tale quality, but is also weird and bloody and deadly. And I found that there were places reading it, and it's a great OSC adventure, but I was also like, oh, this is a luck thing, which doesn't exist in most old school, D&D versions, including OSC. But I was like, well, this, any DCC adventure writer would say, well, you need to make a luck check to see if you spring this particular trap, or the demon idol will attack the whatever character enters with the lowest luck, or whatever, and that kind of stuff. So there are some nuances of D&D, because DC is really unlike all the retro clones and the I mean, the Spellburn, the Mighty Deeds, the luck, especially the luck, is a different animal. And I don't know if I would have felt as much pressed to do that if I was working on like a Seminole Judges Guild or TSR adventure. Xanadu, I felt like I got to lean into the luck and the Spellburn and the
you definitely want to put that in, right? Because I mean that's part of the conversion. Is, I mean, we're not just changing stats, right? We're changing systems. And just like luck, luck is mostly just a DCC thing, but people tend to forget also that roll a d20 plus your luck mod is how you listen to hear things in DCC. And so there's that. Or some of these traps are like, okay, well, when someone's crossing it, roll a d6 to see if they fall through. Well, that becomes a luck check. Dwarves have those wonderful underground skills that you can easily drop little bits and pieces that they specifically can pick up with those skills. In Caverns of Thracia, there's all sorts of religious iconography that clerics as a class, would certainly get a trained skill check for. So you definitely want to lean into that stuff. You don't want to change the tone of the adventure, right? Because I mean, you're converting it. You always want to stay faithful to the adventure, because people want. I've said this before, I'll say it again. People are going to be buying Caverns of Thracia because it's a Jennell Jaquays adventure, not because it's a Bob Brinkman conversion, right? They want to play Jennell's adventure. They just want to play it in DCC. And so you want to make sure that it feels like DCC while it still feels like the original adventure. And that's really, it's not hard to work those things in. Sometimes it can be hard to plan for things like a cleric rolling a max bless, but
if I recall, Caverns of Thracia was voted one of the top 30 games of...
that was Dark Tower. Dark Tower was number 21 on a list of 30. I maintain that Caverns of Thracia didn't make the list because they would have been embarrassed to have a non-TSR adventure at number 1. It really is.
Wow.
Caverns of Thracia is the best adventure I've ever read. Full stop.
It is quite the mega dungeon. Now, did you have anything to do with what was it, Hell Pits of Nightfang? Which is also
as a matter of fact, I found out about that conversion when it came across my email feed in a Goodman Games announcement.
Yeah, me too. I was like, wait a minute.
I knew that it had been acquired because Rebecca, when I was talking to her at GaryCon, had mentioned that Goodman had acquired the adventure, but I had no idea what was going on with it. And I'm like, oh, hey, okay, Zog did the conversion for it. Cool. And it's on the D&D side, it's going to have a special cover of Or 9.5 that's going to be exclusive to the backer kit. But I had nothing to do with that conversion.
So for our listeners, because this is pretty obscure stuff here, I think, right? This is a RuneQuest adventure by Judge's Guild. Is that right?
Yes.
So this is, and which is, they didn't do a ton of that I know of, but they did a lot of different stuff. They did Traveler and all kinds of other things besides D&D, but I don't know that how much RuneQuest they did, and maybe they did a bunch, but
they did at least a few.
But it's by Jennell, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably one of her few or only RuneQuest adventures. And
probably, I mean, mathematically, RuneQuest isn't too difficult to convert because it's a percentile-based system, right? So
yeah,
I mean that breaks down nicely to a D20, at least in some aspects. But again, anytime you sit down to do one of these conversions, the real challenge is keeping the author's voice. And I'd even go back and forth with Jeff Seifert, who's been my editor for Devil Lich, Dark Tower, and Thracia. And he's like, yeah, this is, this phrasing should change. And like, nope, that's Jennell's phrasing. It stays as is. Because it needs to read. It needs to read like Jennell. It needs to feel like her work, but it needs to feel like she wrote it for DCC.
Yeah, and especially like matching a tone like you have to, like during tournaments or something where you've got all these people writing for the parts that you need to smooth out into one piece.
It's a little hard because some of the charm of I'm not thinking of Jennell stuff. I'm thinking of stuff that's probably a little cruder and more primitive than that. But which I have worked on, and some of that is kind of top secret still. But some of it is, it has a certain charm, but it's not especially well written. I mean, and it's not up to concision of modern standards, which sometimes don't even like. I mean, I love Teagle Manor, and I don't really think there's anything wrong with how amorphous a lot of those descriptions are, and terse some of those descriptions are. I'm a big fan, but a lot that's just not going to cut it for a lot of modern judges.
No, and so if you were converting it, you build on that. You want to maintain the feel, but you're going to need to build on that, right? I mean, a lot of old school adventures were a room number, a monster block, and a treasure list, and that's it. There wasn't any real text, and so you have to be able to grow the adventure when you're doing the conversion.
So Jen, you've done some editing on a bunch of different conversions as well,
yeah,
I believe.
Admittedly, most of my exposure through that was through Daniel J. Bishop, right? He wrote a conversion from Pathfinder for X Crawl, the Boston Crawl. That was a lot of fun. And then when he wrote Through the Dragon Wall, which is straight DCC, it was meant to cap off the trilogy of Harley's Dragora's Dungeon and The Curse of the Kingspire, which Bishop also did the conversions for. So there was a lot of looking at all 4 original pieces, because those were in the Master, is it the Master series, I believe, from 2nd edition originally? I mean, way back when. So going through the originals for both of those pieces, plus those conversions, and tying it all together in that big piece, that was quite the project. And then it looks like James and I have both had some experience with Grimtooth. When Trapsylvania came out, nothing had been statted for any of them. So Terry Olson and I worked on the stats for those. James, are you working on just creating the stats for these traps, or do you have critters too?
Yeah, both. Because it depends. We got our list or whatever, and there's like how many people on that project? 7, 8, I think, writers. I can't remember. In the OAR translation, right? The yet to be out in your hands. But yeah, from agnostic to DCC was a kind of a totally different game, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more about like imagination and in some cases math. Like I remember an adventure is about, or one of the traps is about like 5,000 cubic feet of gold coins fall on into a pit where the adventurers have just fallen into, and like you're going like, wait a minute, okay, and then they tell you roughly how big the hole is. So you're like, wait, so I need a pipe of certain diameter, and then a certain kind of like surface, like a slick surface or a stony surface or whatever, to figure out what the flow rate is for that pipe. And then how long does it take 5,000 cubic meters of coin to go through a 4-foot diameter hole? And you're like, you're like, oh, this happens. It happens in 2 rounds. I found out.
That's when a DCC judge just says, it's so heavy the entire ceiling breaks and it just drops in a round.
Yes.
We're not big on crunch, right?
Come to think of it, there were actually some stats set forth in Grimtooth's Museum of Death, the one with Grimtina on the cover.
Right.
We carried like Grim Scales Jr., the small dragon. We carried those forward into Trapsylvania. So there's a little bit of tie back to, more stats that were never created except out of bulk. So
I don't know. I broke the playtest for Museum of Death. We were at GaryCon. We went through the entire session. We were each given a hireling so that we had a bonus body we could throw at things. We lost 1.
That must have really pissed Job off.
Oh, it did. He was beside himself, which was funny in and of itself.
Well, that's good. Now I want to dig up that episode and listen to what he said after that, because I'm sure there was a terse summary. Oh, you ran an interesting playtest.
Well, you got to be careful with these things, right? I mean, Crypt's traps are deadly, and I used them in my AD&D campaign, so I know you got to be careful when it comes to traps.
Yeah, I remember your TJK when you did the Crypt of the Devil Lich. Do you know what a TJK is?
A total judge kill?
A total Julian kill. I died. I didn't just die. I died in the trap before the first encounter. I mean, just hideously. It was like 5 minutes, like literally, like I go down the hall. Okay, well, you fall and you're dead.
We're hearing about that.
And you have 63 points of damage. I was the thief. I was like, okay. So anyway,
you were bleeding out for 6 rounds, right? They could have fixed you.
You very generously. I just sort of, there was a hand wave, and we continued playtesting. So, yes.
But But you didn't do that again, did you?
No.
I feel like Papatitis all of a sudden.
No, I gotta. Now that's why I always stop by the orphanage before I go into dungeons now, and I am very careful. Anyway, that's another story. So, guys, we probably need to wrap it up time-wise.
Right.
This has been a good discussion. And we got to plug Caverns of Thracia. It's going live tomorrow. Today is Monday, June 24th evening. So it's going live Tuesday, the 25th of June, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
At noon Eastern.
It is going to be raging and roaring as you hear if you hear this when we drop this episode, you will be able to get on there and back it and do that. So it looks freaking great. And I could tell you the whole, I'm sure I did tell the whole story being in Taco John Hirschberger's game at GaryCon, where I got really drunk and I was playing with Jeff Goad sitting next to me, and I was shouting as the paladin because we were routing the Minotaurs. And anyway, that was, I'm sure everybody was like, who is this? Oh, anyway, so we did have
stuff in this crowdfunding campaign. It's not a Kickstarter. It's going to be on BackerKit.
Right. Okay. Right.
It's
on
actually
BackerKit.
Really convenient because that's where most of the pledge managers get shunted through anyway. Just because they're far easier to work with on a logistic scale. So besides all the cool stuff, there's an original piece from you, right, Bob?
Yes. Beneath the Isle of Serpents is set in the greater environs beyond the ruins of Thracia, in the Starry Archipelago.
And that will actually be DCC number 109.
Wow.
Jen will no longer be able to say that I have not written for real DCC.
Ah, that's the.
You wrote for DCC Langport. Yeah, but you haven't written for real DCC.
Wow.
I wrote for Dying Earth. You still haven't written for real DCC.
Oh boy.
I love it. I love it.
Wow.
So of all those cool things that are in there, James, what's the most surprising or the best thing in that list?
Of the stuff for Thracia?
Like potential add-ons and stuff. Yeah.
You know what? I haven't been paying attention all that hard, so I don't even know.
Well,
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the base module, so I'm just excited for the big book.
Okay.
There's going to be a reprint of the annual, including a foil cover. There's going to be a new hardcover reprint of Sailors on the Starless Sea, including a hardcover version of Doug's Sailors foil hardcover. Tomes of Adventure collecting the Holiday Adventures, a tome for horror. There's a third one that's I'm not sure if that's themed or not.
5, 6, and 7. 7 is Lankmar.
No, it's not a Lankmar. It was billed as like gods and demons, I think. So I'm not sure what that one is. Of course, Hell Pits of Nightfang for DCC is going to be available. There is a special patch for early backers. There's 4 new sets of dice that are rather than the standard acrylic dice, they're resin dice. So there's like multicolors and inclusions.
Sets because they're pieces and pieces. They're not doing the full like 14 dice sets.
Right. So they're going to be available as the
one.
Right. It's going to be the 9, the 9 and the 7. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say the annual doesn't get enough love, so I love to see that reprinted. But a RuneQuest conversion to DCC, I mean, that cracks me.
Zog, you gotta get it.
Yeah, and by Jennell, like a Jennell RuneQuest adventure from the olden days, converted to. I mean, that's just it's just nuts. It's like that's can't be passed up. So that's my vote for the coolest thing. With the annual, I mean, Caverns of Thracia itself is not enough, right? But the annual is great too, and it doesn't, the annual's awesome. All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. I just want to thank Alana for putting up with us yet again and letting us run late. especially after she had a busy vacay weekend. So Alana, hats off to you. Also, Judge Bob, I'll embarrass you and thank you vociferously for your help collating and editing what Spellburn episodes, which you've been helping us with since the Twitch era began, I believe, more or less, and
Sure.
certainly have done a lot of stuff there. So we very much appreciate that. And other than that, I just want to say thanks to Glitter Wizard, Loot the Body, St. Karloff for permission to use their music as always. Don't forget to email us often and early at spellburnband@gmail.com. And all our episodes are available on spellburn.net, as well as all our Dungeon Denizens from ye old days and the new Mighty Deeds fillable form we talked about, and the links to this that are in the show notes to this show. So go check out the website, and that's pretty much it. Any last words, guys?
Have fun, convert what you want, and be inspired.
All right, game on.